To my daughter, Talia. I leave this $10 bill. Buy yourself a clue. The lawyer's voice didn't waver. He read the line as if he were ordering a sandwich. Bored and efficient. The words hung in the sterile, expensive air of the office, settling over me like a layer of frost. Across the mahogany table, my sister Ashley sat perfectly still. She was wearing designer black, the kind of morning attire that costs more than my car. A small, satisfied smirk tugged at the corner of her perfectly painted lips. She had just inherited $12.5 million, the entire lakeside estate, and a stock portfolio that could fund a small country, and I got $10. The lawyer slid a plain white envelope across the polished wood. It wasn't thick. It wasn't heavy. It contained a single, crisp bill. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I reached out and took the envelope. My fingers didn't tremble. In my line of work, you learn that emotion is just noise. Data is the only thing that matters. And this $10 bill? It was a data point. A very loud, very specific message from beyond the grave. I tucked the envelope into my bag, right next to my forensic auditing license. Before I show you exactly what I did with that $10, drop a comment below. Where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? I love knowing who's out there with me. 3 days before I received that $10 bill, I was standing in the driveway of the lakeside estate. It was pouring rain, the kind of cold, relentless downpour that soaks through your coat in seconds and settles into your bones. I had driven 4 hours to get there. My father was dead. Whatever he had been, narcissist, tyrant, ghost, he was still my father. And I had come to say goodbye. I walked up the stone steps, rehearsing what I might say to my mother. I wanted to hug her. I wanted us to be two women grieving the same loss. I wanted, for once, to just be a daughter. The front door swung open before I could knock. My mother, Susan, stood there. She looked immaculate, not a hair out of place. Her makeup sealed with setting spray that cost more than my rent. She didn't open her arms. She didn't cry. She looked at me with the frantic, annoyed expression she usually reserved for a caterer who was running late. "Thank God you're here," she said. "We have a crisis." I stepped forward, ready to comfort her. I thought she meant an emotional crisis. I thought she meant the grief was too much. The valet service sent 3 guys instead of 5. She snapped, thrusting a bundle of fabric into my chest. "We have 200 guests arriving in 20 minutes and the driveway is going to be a disaster. You need to handle the overflow lot." I looked down at what she had shoved into my hands. It wasn't a tissue. It was a neon yellow safety vest with the word staff printed on the back. I stood there, water dripping from my hair onto the marble foyer, holding that vest. A normal person would have thrown it on the ground. A normal person would have screamed, "I am your daughter, and my father is dead." But I didn't. There is a specific kind of sickness that comes from being the unwanted child. You spend your whole life waiting for the lock to click. You convince yourself that love is a transaction, and you just haven't paid enough yet. You think, maybe this is the test. Maybe if I save the day, if I park the cars, if I make her look good in front of the senator's wife, she will finally look at me and see a person. It's an invisible chain. You hold the key in your pocket, but you never use it because you're terrified that freedom feels like loneliness. So I put on the vest. I spent my father's funeral standing in the mud of the overflow lot, taking keys from people who didn't recognize me. I parked Mercedes after Mercedes. I held umbrellas for cousins who looked right through me, through the bay windows of the living room. I could see inside. It was warm. There was a fire crackling. My sister, Ashley, was holding court in the center of the room. She was weeping beautifully, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, surrounded by comforting hands. She looked like a tragic angel. She was the grieving daughter. I was the help. When the service started, I stood outside in the rain, watching through the glass. I saw my mother wrap her arm around Ashley. I saw them bow their heads together, and standing there, shivering in that ridiculous neon vest, I finally realized the truth. They hadn't forgotten to invite me inside. They just didn't need me there. The picture was perfect without me. I parked the last car, turned off the engine, and sat in the dark for a moment. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment the chain snapped. Back in the lawyer's office, the air conditioning hummed, trying to scrub the tension from the room. Ashley was already signing papers, the scratching of her pen loud in the silence. She didn't look at me. She had her millions. I was just a ghost in the corner. The lawyer cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable for the first time. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a single, rusted key on a plain wire ring. "There is one more thing," he said, avoiding my eyes. "Your father left instructions regarding a storage unit on the south side of town. He called it the overflow. It's mostly broken furniture and old tax records that are past the retention period. He said you could have the contents if you wanted to deal with the disposal fees." Ashley let out a short, sharp laugh. "He left you his trash," she said. "That's poetic." I took the key. I didn't say thank you. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out of that office, got into my 10-year-old sedan, and drove. I didn't go home to cry. I went straight to the storage facility. It was a row of corrugated metal boxes behind a chain-link fence. The kind of place where things go to be forgotten. I rolled up the metal door. Dust motes danced in the shaft of sunlight that cut through the gloom. It was exactly what the lawyer had promised. A graveyard of my family's discarded life. There were chairs with broken legs that my mother couldn't bear to look at but refused to throw away. There were boxes of my father's old golf magazines. There were stacks of bankers' boxes filled with financial records from the 90s. To anyone else, this was a burden. A weekend of heavy lifting and a trip to the dump. But they forgot who I was. I am a forensic data analyst. I don't see trash. I see timelines. I see patterns. I see the things people hide when they think no one is looking. I started pulling boxes down. I worked methodically, stacking them by date. I wasn't looking for money. I was looking for information. Rich people like my father don't hoard trash unless it contains something they're afraid to shred. 2 hours in, I found it. It wasn't in a safe. It wasn't hidden under a floorboard. It was in a cardboard box marked kitchen donations. Buried under a stack of old placemats was a laptop. It was heavy, thick, at least 6 years old. The casing was cracked near the hinge. My father was the kind of man who upgraded his tech every year. He never kept old devices. He wiped them and traded them in. So why was this one sitting in a box of placemats in a storage unit he hadn't visited in a decade? I pulled it out. I wiped the dust from the screen. I didn't have a charger. But I sat on the concrete floor and pressed the power button, praying for a lingering charge. The screen flickered. It was dim. But it was alive. And right there, staring back at me, was a password prompt. I stared at the blinking cursor. Most people overcomplicate passwords. They use birthdays, anniversaries, pet names. But my father was a narcissist. And narcissists are predictable. They only care about the things that reflect them. I typed in the only word that had ever mattered in our house. Ashley 1. The screen turned black. Then blue. It unlocked. I didn't waste time looking at the desktop. I went straight to the directory. I bypassed the standard user folders and ran a quick search for hidden partitions. It took 30 seconds. There was a drive labeled System Recovery. But the file size was way too large for a backup. I opened it. It wasn't system files. It was a folder named The Dump. I clicked it open, and my entire adult life flashed across the screen in PDF format. There were hundreds of files. I opened the first one. It was a credit card application from 14 years ago. I was 18 at the time, living in a dorm, eating ramen because I didn't have a meal plan. The application was in my name, my social security number, but the address was my parents' estate. And the signature? It was a clumsy forgery of my own. I opened the next file. A personal loan for $50,000. Date, June 12th, 2015. I froze. I remembered that date. That was the week Ashley had a meltdown because her first fiancé wanted a destination wedding and my father said cash was tight. Suddenly, the cash wasn't tight anymore. They had the wedding in Tuscany. I scrolled faster. Default notices. Collection agency letters. All intercepted. All hidden. For a decade. I had believed I was just bad with money. I couldn't get approved for an apartment without a cosigner. I paid predatory interest rates on my car. I thought I was broken. Financially illiterate. A screw-up. But I wasn't broken. I was being harvested. It was financial Munchausen by proxy. They systematically destroyed my credit score to keep me weak. If I couldn't get a loan, I couldn't buy a house. If I couldn't buy a house, I couldn't move away. They anchored me with debt I didn't know I had. Just to fund Ashley's lifestyle and ensure I would always be the mess of the family. They stole my future to pay for her parties. The battery indicator in the corner of the screen flashed red. 5% remaining. I didn't panic. Panic is inefficient. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my encrypted USB drive. I plugged it in. I selected the entire dump folder and hit drag and drop. The progress bar crawled across the screen. Green filling the gray. 2% battery. Come on. 1% battery. The transfer hit 100%. The folder icon settled onto my drive. The screen went black. The laptop died. I sat there in the dusty silence of the storage unit, holding the USB drive in my hand. It was cold metal, but it felt like a grenade. They thought they had buried me. They thought I was the coat check girl, the failure, the $10 daughter. They forgot that I audit fraud for a living, and I just found the receipts. For 2 weeks, I was a ghost. I didn't call the police immediately. I didn't confront my mother. I went back to my apartment, locked the door, and spent 14 days doing what I do best. I built a case file. I cross-referenced the dates on the loans with Ashley's social media posts. The $50,000 loan in my name? It matched the timestamps of her honeymoon in Bali. The defaulted credit card? It aligned perfectly with her new wardrobe renovation. I organized the evidence into folders. Identity theft, wire fraud, embezzlement. It was a masterpiece of forensic accounting. It was lethal, and it was sitting on my encrypted drive, waiting for a trigger. Then, my phone rang. It was Ashley. I stared at the screen. Her name didn't make me angry anymore. Anger is a waste of energy. It just made me focus. I answered on the third ring. "Where have you been?" she snapped. No hello. No asking how I was coping with our father's death or my $10 inheritance. "We've been trying to reach you." "Stop being dramatic. What do you want?" "Ashley, the gala," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Saturday night. The launch of the Richard Legacy Foundation. We invited the governor. We invited the press. Mom says you have to be there. I almost laughed. They stole my identity to fund their lives. And now they wanted me to come and clap for them? I'm not going, I said. I kept my voice flat. I needed her to think I was just sulking. I needed her to think I was weak. Don't be difficult. "Talia, it's embarrassing," she huffed. "We need family unity for the photos. And besides, Mom needs you to sign some papers." "What papers?" "Just some release forms for the lake house," she said, her voice breezy and dismissive. "There's a little clerical error on the title. A lien or something attached to your name from years ago. We need you to sign it off so we can sell the property." There it was. The hubris. They thought I didn't know about the lien because they were the ones who took out the loan against the house using my credit. They needed my signature to clean up the crime scene before they cashed out. They thought I was still the clueless little sister, the coat check girl who would sign anything just to stop the yelling. They were inviting the auditor to the audit. "Fine," I said. "I'll be there. I'll sign whatever you want." "Good," Ashley said. "And Talia? Try to look expensive. We don't want you looking like... well, you. Wear something that doesn't look like it came from a clearance rack." She hung up. I put the phone down. I didn't go shopping for a dress to impress them. I bought a dress that looked like armor sharp. Black. Tailored. I didn't pack lipstick in my clutch. I packed the USB drive. They wanted me to sign away my future. I was going to sign away their freedom. The ballroom smelled like lilies and old money. I walked in, my heels clicking on the marble, holding my clutch tight. The event organizer, a woman who had ignored me at the wake, scanned her clipboard. She didn't look up. "Table 99, she said, pointing toward the back. Of course. Table 99 was tucked behind a decorative pillar, right next to the swinging doors of the kitchen. Every time a waiter came out with a tray of salmon, I got a breeze of fish and dish soap. It was the designated spot for the embarrassments. I sat down. I didn't drink the wine. I watched. My mother, Susan, was working the room like a politician. She was touching arms, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, accepting condolences with a graceful tilt of her head. She looked powerful. She looked untouchable. But as I watched her, I realized something. Power in this room wasn't real. It wasn't built on value or character or actual assets. It was built on credit. It was a projection. My family's reputation was just like the loans they took out in my name borrowed. Hollow. And accruing interest. They thought they were giants because people clapped for them. But they were just standing on a glass floor, completely unaware that the foundation had rotted out years ago. Reputation is a funny thing. It takes a lifetime to build. But it only takes one receipt to dismantle. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. Ashley walked out. She looked radiant in silver. The grieving angel returned to Earth to do good works. A massive screen behind her projected a photo of my father, smiling, looking benevolent. "My father," Ashley began, her voice catching perfectly in her throat, "was a man of integrity. He built this empire from nothing. He sacrificed everything for his family. Even when it was hard. Even when some of us were burdens. She looked directly at table 99. The room sighed in sympathy. They ate it up. We are launching the Richard Legacy Foundation today to honor that integrity. She continued. To ensure that his name lives on in purity. Applause thundered. It was nauseating. Then, Ashley smiled. It was the smile of a cat that had just cornered a mouse. I see my sister Talia is here, she said into the microphone. The spotlight swung wildly, searching the dark corners until it blinded me. Talia, come up here. I know you're shy, and you don't always know the right things to say, but I'm sure you have a few words for Dad. The trap was set. She wanted me to walk up there, stutter, look unkempt, and mumble something awkward so she could hug me and look like the benevolent saint comforting the broken sister. I stood up. I smoothed my dress. I walked toward the stage. I didn't look down. I didn't look shy. I walked up the stairs with the steady, rhythmic pace of an executioner. Ashley handed me the microphone. Her eyes were gleaming with triumph. Go ahead, sweetie, she whispered. Off mic. Don't embarrass us. I took the mic. I smiled back. I didn't start with a speech. Speeches are emotional. I started with the evidence. I walked over to the AV console, ignored the tech guy's confused look, and plugged my drive directly into the main port. The massive screen behind Ashley flickered. The benevolent photo of my father vanished. In its place, a grainy video appeared. The audio boomed through the speakers. Crisp and undeniable. It was my father, sitting in his study, holding a tumbler of scotch. He was laughing. She'll never know. His recorded voice echoed off the ballroom walls. I forged her signature on the $50,000 loan this morning. Talia is clueless. She thinks she just has bad luck with banks. I weighed her. The room went so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. Ashley turned around, her face draining of color. She lunged for the laptop. But I was already clicking the next slide. The video cut. A spreadsheet appeared. It was massive, complex, and damning. I stepped back to the microphone. I didn't yell. I used my professional voice, the one I use when I'm explaining to a CEO that his CFO is stealing from him. Let's look at the ledger, I said calmly. I pointed to the first column. June 12th, 2015. A $50,000 personal loan taken out in the name of Talia Richard. Destination of funds, the Venetian Catering Company. For Ashley's wedding in Tuscany. Dagnau. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. I saw a donor in the front row cover her mouth. I clicked again. August 4th, 2018. Credit card opened in my name. Balance maxed out at $20,000. Items purchased. Landscaping for the estate and a vintage Porsche restoration. It's not right. Susan was standing up now, waving her hands at the tech crew to cut the feed. But they were too stunned to move. And finally, I said, clicking to the last slide, the Richard Legacy Foundation. You're all here to donate tonight. But you should know that for the past 6 months, this foundation has been used to wash money from 3 shell companies to pay off the family's gambling debts. And for mine. For a Mehmet. I looked at Ashley. She was shaking, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The arrogance was gone. The golden child was tarnished. It's not a legacy. I told the room. It's a laundering scheme. And I have the receipts. Ashley grabbed the mic stand. This is a lie. She's mentally unstable. Cut the feed. But before she could finish her spin, the double doors at the back of the ballroom burst open with a crash that shook the floor. It wasn't hotel security. Federal agents. Nobody move. The room froze. A team of agents in windbreakers swarmed the aisles. I hadn't just played a slideshow for the guests. I had emailed the entire dump folder to the FBI Financial Crimes Division 24 hours ago. I looked at my mother. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the handcuffs on the agent's belt. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a federal crime scene. The chaos was absolute. The agents moved with the efficiency of a tidal wave. Sweeping through the gala, Ashley was being read her rights, her mascara running in black streaks down her face. The silver dress now looking like a cheap costume. My mother, Susan, was putting up a fight. 2 agents were escorting her off the stage. Her hands were cuffed behind her back. When she saw me standing by the AV booth, she stopped struggling. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide and wild with disbelief. Talia, she screamed, her voice cracking over the din of the crowd. How could you? We're your family. You owe us. I walked toward her. The crowd parted for me. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel guilt. I felt the kind of calm that comes after a fever breaks. I stopped right in front of her. I reached into my clutch and pulled out the crumpled white envelope from the lawyer's office. I took out the single, crisp $10 bill. My father had left me the sum total of my worth in their eyes. I tucked the bill into her cuffed hands. Here, I said, my voice steady. Buy yourself a lawyer. I turned my back on her, screaming. I walked out of the ballroom, past the stunned donors, past the flashing lights of the patrol cars, and into the cool night air. I didn't look back. You don't look back at a burning building when you're the one who struck the match. 6 months later, I sat on the porch of my new cabin. It was small, tucked away in the mountains, far from the ocean and the social climbing of Newport. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my credit monitoring app. Score, 800. Excellent. I took a sip of coffee. The silence out here was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. People always tell you that family is everything. They tell you that blood is thicker than water, that you have to forgive, that you have to endure. But they are wrong. Sometimes, family is the infection that is killing you, and the only way to survive is to amputate the limb. It cost me everything I knew to walk away. It cost me the illusion of having parents. It cost me the comfort of pretending. But as I watched the sun come up over the trees, I realized something. Peace is expensive, but it was worth every penny. If you've ever had to burn a bridge to save yourself, leave a fire emoji in the comments. You are the architect of your own peace. Don't forget to subscribe.